Well, good evening. Oh, thank you very much for everyone who is online. So my name is Daniel Fonseca. I will be moderating this panel. I'm very happy to be here with you from the COP. So the subject of this presentation is energy efficiency, and I want to thank the organizers kindly, the IDFC and BICE, for organizing this workshop, and we're very happy to have this conversation because it is something that's very close to all of these institutions' priorities and the work that's been done, and it's not an easy topic to challenge. So first of all, just briefly mention, I mean, from the IDB side, which is where I work on the public sector, it is something that we've engaged extensively because this provides an opportunity of a lot of potential to promote climate change through smaller companies, no? So in essence, when we look at these interventions and we're able to deal in these types of projects, for us it's important to find excellent, wonderful partners who are able to reach the smaller companies and help support them. And here, when you look at energy efficiency projects, there are several barriers. One, of course, is the financing, which is what we all do here in this panel. And we deal, obviously, with the difficulty of finding suitable credit for these companies that sometimes may be constrained in terms of the credit that may be receiving. And of course, when you do energy efficiency, there is a lack of collateral there in terms of receiving the proper credit from management sector. So that becomes in itself a pretty big challenge. Then there's also the capacity building to implement these projects, and therefore a lot of technical assistance is required because there are complexities to that potential of implementing a project in a small company, and help with that technology is very much important. Finally, also the investment cost itself are normally higher than what you would anticipate if you would buy a less efficient asset, and therefore the companies may struggle at some point in terms of what is the predictable outcome of the savings that they may have. So in that essence, all of this put together leads to a fantastic opportunity in which all of the presenters today have been working very much so in this space, and certainly has a lot more to do to continue the implementation. From the IDB side, of course, we work with over 50 national development banks. We have been promoting financing for green for many years as part of an integral part of our strategy. And definitely this is a topic that's very much interesting and important to us, helping support the national development banks and using also donor resources to help promote this, because the blending component will also be an integral part to help implement these projects. So in that space, we've occupied obviously a lot of partnerships with the GCF, with CTF, with Denmark, with KfW, and etc. There are a lot of donors that are very interested and very much working with that. So with that, I will go pass on to the presenters so that they may be able to allow us to enlighten us with what made me working. So I'll start first with my colleague from CAF, Jorge Arbache, who's the Vice President for Private Sector at the Development Bank of Latin America. He is obviously a professor in economics from the University of Brasilia. Previous positions include Deputy Minister for International Affairs at the Ministry of Planning in Brazil, Chief Economist of Ministry of Planning, Senior Economist at the World Bank, Senior Economic Advisor at the Brazilian Development Bank, the NDS, Economist at the International Labor Organization, member of the Board of Directors of large companies banks, member in many profile business, policy committees, board, and the Executive Secretary of Brazil China Investment Fund. So definitely we have a very qualified colleague in Jorge, and the wonderful work that CAF is doing in this field is certainly something that we look forward to hearing from your presentation. So Jorge, if you are ready, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you for inviting us for this for this panel. Very important, very timely, and hello to my panel colleagues. Well, CAF, as was mentioned before, is pretty much engaged in the efficiency, energy efficiency, through different channels. We have the public driver, and we have the private sector driver. Let me put some more emphasis for now on what we have been doing with other institutions in order to reach the SMEs, the small and medium-sized companies, which is part of our core when we think of energy efficiency. We have developed some line of credits and some instruments, including capacity building and also some technical studies in order to identify what these SMEs may need according with the sector, according with each different country, and even within countries. So far, we have been working not only with private banks, commercial banks, but also with many national development banks and even with subnational development banks as well. And I understand that so far we have been doing a relatively good job. We have helped many small companies in having access to new technologies for them to deploy all what is needed for them to engage in such an interesting and important agenda. But beyond that, let me, if you allow me, Daniel, mention something that I also consider very important regarding not only energy efficiency, but regarding the agenda on climate change as a whole, and with a focus on at the regional level. We understand that the region, I think that you at IDB also share this view. This region has a huge potential regarding being a kind of a platform, not only for producing clean energy, but also for making clean energy a kind of a key factor for attracting foreign direct investment, especially for those sectors that are very intensive in energy. When what I mentioned that because more and more we see a kind of a matching between the potential that that this region has, and also with the needs of some other regions, including Europe, in special, especially these days when we have some kind of shortage regarding energy supply, prices, and also geopolitical issues. This is not limited to Europe, but it is especially important for Europe in the short and medium term. We understand that as part of this huge agenda of collaboration that we are putting forward at the bank, but also in many other banks. I can see Bancoldex here. Colombia is also fully engaged in clean energy, and we are also focusing on green hydrogen, which is part of this agenda for making Latin America a platform for accommodating, for attracting foreign direct investment for those sectors that are intensive in energy. I think that this factor, joint with some other factors, including helping SMEs in engaging more and better in clean energy, can help create a value chain for supporting big companies that may consider coming to Latin America and the Caribbean in order to produce here based on clean energy. And a final comment, which has to do with this aspect. Until very recently, let's say until today, we have been talking a lot about nearshoring as part of a broader agenda on foreign direct investments and so on and so forth. But uh, nearshoring has a lot to do with cheap labor. But we understand that more and more what will indeed be a key factor for the location of FDI, including manufacturing, will be clean and cheap energy. In this regard, this region is very well positioned at the global level. And I think that this is a key aspect that I would like to leave on the table for further discussion. But in a final word, energy efficiency is at the core of CAF as a green bank of Latin America. That's a commitment that the new administration of CAF has put for the region. We have committed to by 2026 to approve at least 40% of our approvals will be on clean on the green agenda. So as part of this broader effort. I stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Very good and very interesting. And we'll get back to questions afterwards. But I'll move on to Paola, who's here in the room with me in Egypt. So Paola Clery holds master's degrees in development studies from the London School of Economics and a bachelor degree in political science from the University of Buenos Aires. Paola works as the head of international relations and sustainability in BICE, the Argentine Development Bank. And previously, Paola led the Mobile for Development programs in Latin America and Monitoring Evaluation Unit of the Program for Family Farmers at the Ministry of Agriculture. She has more than 15 years' experience in international finance and cooperation, both nationally and internationally, and she has worked as a consultant for the Industria Unión of Argentina, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Ministry of Agribusiness, the Organization of American States, and the United Nations, among other national institutions. So we're very happy to have Paola here, as she is in her position of Head of International Relations and Sustainability of BICE. And Paola has probably many interesting things that you can mention about energy efficiency from the bank that has been done, as I've experienced firsthand. So please go ahead, Paola.
Thank you so much. I think I have a presentation. Excellent. No, it's not that one, the other one. Let's hope I know how to work this out. So, as we all know, it's important to talk about energy efficiency because the demand, of course, is growing around the world. The demand for energy is growing, not only because you know the population is growing, but also because all of those that do not have access to energy today, they all put it. So at some point, they are aspiring to use this energy. But we all know that also what we need to produce energy is also finite. You know, and I'm not talking about coal, oil, and gas, but also all the minerals we need to, or all the minerals, all the resources that are from which renewable energy relies on, like to make car batteries or solar panels. And in the end, okay, these resources are finite, so we need to talk more and talk more about energy efficiency. And now I need my presentation because I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. It's fine. Let's hope. Well, let me tell. Okay, so if I want to exemplify it, energy efficiency, and I know we are all getting into the mood of the World Cup, and I know Jorge, at least you are. So if we had Messi running around for 90 minutes, he would not make it to the end of the game. So when he started working he started playing in Barcelona. One of the things that they told him to do is he didn't need to go to run every ball. He didn't need to run all those 90 minutes. If he didn't need to run when the ball was in Barcelona's court, because the defense was there to do their job. And in the end, Messi was is the player that ran the least kilometers in that court, but we all seen him sprint and did his magic. I think this is a good example of how energy efficiency works. Okay, I don't have a presentation, so let me tell you a little bit. Well, I don't have most of the data. No? I do, but I have to get my palacto. So maybe we can go ahead and move to Maria Jose.
Yes, apologies. So we'll move to Maria Jose then first while we gather up the presentation. So Maria Jose Naranjo.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Daniel. How are you doing? It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Paola and Jorge, hello.
Hello. So let me allow me to introduce Maria Jose for the public that may not know her. So Maria Jose is a corporate strategy vice president at Bancoldex. She's a business administrator from the College of Higher Studies in Administration with a master's degree in international relations in Javeriana University in Bogota, Colombia. Maria Jose has been linked to Bancoldex for more than 20 years, leading planning and development from diverse areas of the organization. Her leadership has been decisive in the construction of the bank's corporate strategy, focused on transforming Bancoldex into an instrument of greater impact in the business sector that contributes to the sustainable development of the country. In recent years, she has led the reflection exercises aimed at defining the strategy to bring Bancoldex closer to the governments, to the country's MSMEs. And currently, purposely, Ms. Naranjo has researched development banking trends and best practices on worldwide financial and non-financial support fronts. She has completed in-depth programs in development banking in Korea, Canada, and Spain. And she's also completed economic development programs in Washington with the IDB and in Boston with Harvard University. Currently, from the Vice Presidency of Strategy, she leads a team of strategic direction, marketing, cooperation, and international relations, and new products development, financial and non-financial, aimed at MSMEs, internalization and promotion of her sustainable development of the country. And besides, she is also a member of the Climate Finance Leadership Initiative steering group. And very much Bancoldex has also worked very closely with the IDB, so we know Maria Jose very well from various interactions, and it's a great pleasure to have her present the wonderful work that Bancoldex is doing in energy efficiency. So Maria Jose, if you may please, and we have the presentation for Bancoldex, I believe.
Daniel, thank you very much for the nice presentation you just made. Let me start by telling you a little bit more about Bancoldex before I start. I think it's a good idea for everybody to know us a little bit more. First of all, we are Colombia's business development bank. Of course, that means that we support the financement and all the support for micro, small, medium-sized enterprises operation. Of course, we have also to support the internalization of Colombia's company, and we also promote, and this is very, very important, sustainable development to boost the economic growth of the country. So we made a decision, and this is our main purpose in terms of a development bank in Colombia. Next, please. Besides, we have chosen 4 strategic guidelines for our business. The first of the 4 is we choose to promote micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises productivity. We believe that our bank is meant to do that. We support also, and this is very, very important, sustainable development in Colombian businesses, because we are deeply convinced that it has to be a bank, a development bank that help SMEs in terms of sustainable development. Our third guideline is we finance foreign trade and entrepreneurial sector internalization. We know that Colombia needs to make some improvements in terms of international trade, and we are convinced that we have to help SMEs to have financing for that field. And finally, we are a public policy instrument for Colombia's entrepreneurial ecosystems. And that means that we have to design and intervene with specific financial and non-financial tools when the economy is having a hard time. The pandemic is a very important example, and this means that we have to invent, we have to design specific portfolio for very hard times for the economy. So these are the four specific guidelines for Bancoldex. Next, please. And if we zoom in the second one, we can find that Bancoldex has defined and has, we design our sustainability strategy that has different pillars, and maybe I will take some minutes to explain this because this is very important in terms of the framework for what I'm going to explain next. First of all, in Bancoldex, we believe that corporate governance is very important in terms of the accountability of the bank. We are deeply convinced that we have to have the right scenarios to make decisions in terms of the business. Then, in terms of the business, we have three main topics where we are designing new portfolio in terms of sustainability, sustainable finance, and responsible investment. That means that we have some portfolio and some credit lines focus on the green growth. That means energy efficiency and transition instruments. Then we have a whole portfolio focus on social welfare. That means we have very special credit lines in terms of women equality and micro inclusions in terms of financial and new financial tools for them. And finally, we have also in terms of the business a pillar that talks about creative and cultural industry and what kind of specific tools and financing we can give to them. And of course, we have two supports that takes place in the bank. The first one is how Bancoldex address and how we address environmental and social risk. That means every transaction we analyze it, and we are very careful of what kind of impacts on social and on environmental fields they're impacting. And finally, the main support of the little temple that you are seeing on your screen is the efficient management. It means that in Bancoldex, inside in our operation processes, we are also deeply convinced that we have to make some changes to be efficient. And of course, we have to have the right human team, and we have to have the right processes in order to be efficient and to be a development bank that is efficient in terms of our processes. Next, please. And here, with all I've talked about, although Bancoldex may be driven by many reasons, there are three ideas we would like you to keep in mind. And this is very important because the first one is Bancoldex is a public policy instrument. And I know Jorge understands it, Paola understands it very well, also Daniel, of course. That means the bank provides financing to business projects that contribute to climate change management. very important, aligned with Bancolde's sustainability strategy. And of course, we focus on the transformation of the energy metrics in Colombia. Clean energy, helping SMEs to be more responsible about what their technologies are and what kind of technologies they are using, and help them to be more efficient in terms of energy. It's a very important thing to Bancoldex. The second idea is Bancoldex as a development bank acts as an articulating agent. Of course, CAF understands it very well, IDFC, of course, IDB, of course. The bank focuses on structuring financial and non-financial products with participation of public, private, international, national, and territorial actors. This is very important because Bancoldex by itself can't do it alone. So we need actors. We need to have allies. And the third idea I would like you to keep in mind is that Bancoldex as a development bank focuses on business development. Of course, the bank promotes the productivity and competitiveness of Colombia's companies with sustainable approach, especially for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And Jorge was mentioning when we just began, and it's how banks like ours, we have to have the right credit lines and the right instrument for SMEs and to help them to go through a more clean path in terms of new technologies. Next, please. Okay, so here I would like to talk a little bit more about a very meaningful program that we took, that we implemented few years ago, and it's called ESI, Energy Savings Insurance Program. I will now take advantage of the opportunity, of course, to say thank you to the IDB because you were a very, very strategic partner in this program. And what I would like to explain to you is this program, specific program focused on SMEs. The main purpose was seek to promote investment in energy efficiency in Colombia, especially through small micro enterprises. This program was focused on developing an innovative scheme of guaranteed energy performance that mitigates project risk and generate investor confidence. This is very important. The barrier of confidence was detected, and I will talk a little bit more in the next slide. But first, I would like you to show a little video of one of these beneficiary of this program. Thank you. No, we can hear it.
Un sistema térmico que supliera de manera confiable la creciente y exigente demanda de agua caliente para todas las dependencias. La institución utilizó el soporte y los elementos del programa ESI para seleccionar y contratar el proveedor que le diera mayor confianza técnica y financiera en el desempeño del proyecto.
Básicamente, el proyecto consistió en la instalación de 220 colectores solares en las cubiertas del Hospital Mederi, proyecto con el cual estamos garantizando agua caliente durante 24 horas al día para las habitaciones de los pacientes que usualmente están en el hospital.
Okay, Daniel, Jorge, and Paola, I don't know if you could see the subtitles. Well, this was a very nice story about one of our beneficiaries in this program, but let me explain what we found in this program. Bancoldex took almost or more than 4 years to understand the main failure, the market failures, or maybe if I talk about barriers, it's a better word. And in that path, we designed the solution for every barrier that we found. So the first one, the first barrier we found was the fact that there was a distrust among entrepreneurs in the existing technologies that could help their business to be cleaner. Sometimes when an SME wants to buy a technology, maybe they don't know if that's gonna work. So the first thing and what we implemented was a validation methodology, where an independent technical entity conducts a quality control review to certify that promised energy savings or energy generation will be realized. So that was the first barrier. The second one were that there were no clear legal standards that outline the commitments between the technology providers and the SMEs buying those new technologies. So the second one is how we invent standardized contract, a simple and clear framework for negotiation between SMEs and technology providers. That was the second barrier that we understood. The third barrier we understood was there were some doubts persisted regarding the energy savings. The SME didn't know for sure what kind of energy savings that would take place. And then, of course, there was the core of this program, that was the insurance. And insurance was a covered potential of the project through a contract compliance guarantee granted by an insurance company to guarantee that the savings will take place. And finally, we also found that there were a fourth barrier, that was the financial system was not specially supportive of becoming a financing instrument of that kind of project. So we invented a credit line, a specific credit line for that kind of project. So if you have the whole picture of the energy savings insurance program, the help and the alliance of the IDB was very, very important for this program to take place. And finally, I will, next please. And with this, I will finish my intervention. I would like to share with you the main result of this program that was very meaningful for Bancoldex, and I think for the IDB also. The first thing I would like to say is that we disbursed over 20 million through the credit line for hotels, clinic, and hospital. The video you just saw was the example of a SME that put panels on a clinic and in order to warm the water. We also had the insurance policy, more than 200 of new insurance policies issued. This took place in 8 departments of Colombia, and the kind of project that took the financement was, for example, LED linings, boiler, air conditioning equipment, energy cogeneration, for example, and thermal solar panels. And I think this is a very nice example to share with you, because we need to have more programs of this kind of purpose, where development bank meet demand of new technology and supply of new technology in SMEs that need to be cleaner. Okay, I think I will leave here and okay.
Thank you very much, Maria Jose. Very good presentation. Thank you very much, and very clear on what Bancoldex is doing, which is something very innovative in Colombia and adds a lot of value for the MSMEs. So we're very happy to see that. So we go back to Paola with our apologies for having lost the presentation. It's been now found and hopefully projected. And I will pass the word.
If not, then I can start. I have my presentation here. So, so I wanted to tell you about this project, which I would also have to thank the ADB. Because this is a project that we have three key actors, which was GCF, which was the lender, EADB, which is the the implementing agency, and BICE, which was the executor of this loan. It was originally thought for renewable energy and energy efficiency. At the beginning, we started working with renewable energy projects, and we had this general criteria for all the projects that the project had to be implemented in Argentina. The amount of the project could be up to 400 million pesos, which is roughly a bit more than $2 million. Okay, so this is the key actors and the roles. So this is the general criteria. So at the beginning, as I was telling you, this is a technical criteria, but at the beginning, as I was telling you, we started working with renewable energy projects. So we started funding renewable energy projects. We had a program in Argentina called Renovar, which identified renewable energy projects, which can then again go to each bank and request funding. The technical criteria was that the technologies used had to be biogas and biomass, that it had to be up to 5 megawatts of energy generation, and it has to be a minimum financial term from 5 years to up to 15 years. But what happened in the middle is that the program was discontinued, and we need to re-switch our project to energy efficiency. So what the issue there, what we had, is that there is a norm in Argentina with the central bank, which makes a lot of sense, that we couldn't lend in dollars to companies that didn't generate these dollars, or were not exporting and generating these dollars. So we had a problem there because we had been lending, so our financing was in dollars. So we were stopped for a little while. And then we discussed this with the Ministry of Production, now the Secretary of Production, and they assumed the exchange rate risk, which was a change in this project, which was amazing. And this was done October, November last year, and since the beginning of the year, we could offer the line in pesos, and now we are going to see the results. So the technical criteria is very simple. They have to demonstrate that it was energy saving, and that there was a minimum financial term from 2 years to up to 15 years. Some of the technologies were used or could be purchased. There were control system, multipliers, photovoltaic, solar heating, air conditioning, boilers, lighting, heat exchangers, motors, compressor systems. I don't want to go over all the technologies, but some of the improvement some of the technologies in order to produce improvement are going to go really fast here, since we are running out of time. Agricultural machinery, lighting, the replacement of lighting systems with LED technology, air conditioning to be more efficient. We have pumps, compressors, fans, motors, and speed variators. This is what used to take the raw materials to the mixing or the crushing or the belts. The distribution solar system, photovoltaic panels, boilers, economizers and ovens, industrial refrigeration equipment and chillers, and machinery used for industrial production. That's turbines, convoy belts, elevators, pressers, grinders, and all this kind of machinery. And now I'm going to show you the main results, because this is what I wanted to get and to head to. So the first 2 years we had 5 renewable energy plants, which it was $20 million for $20 million. And this year alone, it was from January that we started offering this line in pesos up to October. We had already funded 175 energy efficiency projects for $55 million. And this allowed us to save 40 tons of CO2 that were reduced. I wanted to show you how energy efficiency looks like. Maybe here I don't know how to, maybe you can help me put this video, but I hope this energy efficiency, this is how it looks at in the World Cup at least. This is the power of Messi, and this is how also energy efficiency looks like. This is how it looks like, and this is how it looked like. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Paola. Very good example, and puts us in the right mood of the next few days, no? And the World Cup will begin. So it will be pretty exciting. Definitely a very good example of resilience more than anything, I guess, in Argentina, because of all of the changes that were forced to the program. That adaptation definitely is something that has been very important and very useful, no, to help support the country in itself with the objectives that you may have in terms of climate change, no? So very compelling example, and very much appreciated the presentation. So I'll go to questions. I'll do just one round of questions, and we'll leave at that. So I'll go first with Jorge, who's been here for a while and was our first presenter. So Jorge, as you mentioned a little bit of what CAF is doing, which is wonderful work, of course, what do you consider? Do you consider that the region has the conditions to become an energy hub for energy investments, which I assume you'll say yes, but more than that is probably your thought process in terms of how it would be able to achieve it, and if you can also kind of link a little bit that example that you were mentioning in terms of the near-shoring adaptation that you're doing in CAF in terms of energy efficiency. Thanks.
No, thank you, Daniel. First of all, I should consider that the example of Paola is very inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing that, Paola. It's a great example. Now, look, one thing that we have to take into account, Daniel and colleagues, is things such as CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which is a kind of a regulatory agenda that Europe is putting on the table, and that will probably affect many companies around the world, including in Latin America as well. That kind of example has a lot to do with the need for us development banks to support our SMEs to get greener, so that they will be able to compete not only abroad but also to work in value chains with large companies that are looking for a condition for them to produce, take into account this increasingly important factor, which is clean energy as a driver for becoming more competitive at the global level. We see this conversation, Daniel, differently from what we call near-shoring. We are calling this thing power shoring, meaning that being able to provide cheap and green energy will be increasingly important for attracting FDI, as I mentioned before. Putting forward the power shoring agenda requires a lot of things, of course. The first and foremost and most important probably is trying to make this concept part of the discussion. This is the most important one. The second thing has to do with the development of regulatory and other institutional factors that will indeed make clean energy part of our economic development and of our public policies. This has to do with institutions, has to do with legal aspects, has to do with a very clear agenda that it makes the green energy platform as a kind of a factor for making Latin America in general attractive for investors, especially from those countries that are indeed looking for allocations for them to produce things that are energy intensive. Another thing has to do with the right financial instruments. That requires a lot of efforts from development banks in general. That's what we are doing at CAF, but IDB and many other banks, BICE, Bancodex, and all other countries have to engage in this agenda as well, because the amount of resources required to make Latin America a green platform for manufacturing is huge. And there are many other factors, including capacity building. It has to do with the value chain, and that's again why it is so important to engage SMEs. It's hard to think of a big, let's say, glass producer or cement or iron or any other company that is intensive in energy that can be well placed without a value chain, and those providers of that value chain has also to be engaged in producing based on clean energy. So this match between of making the region attractive for large investments from abroad and the preparation for our SMEs and other companies to be part of this effort for making Latin America more competitive at the global level is key. So we have to, beyond making the environment a key aspect of this discussion, which is obvious, for us it is also very, very critical to making the energy transition as a key aspect for economic and social development, and that can be done based on power sharing. So again, that requires a lot in terms of efforts, in terms of strategy, and that indeed will require development banks to work with and to collaborate more and better with other sectors of the economy, including the private sector. I stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Very good. Thank you. So next question to Maria Jose. And in essence, I mean, when you look at the program and everything that you've gone through throughout the years, what would be the main lessons learned that you can extract from developing this whole initiative?
Thank you, Daniel. Of course, I would like to mention 3 lessons. The first one is that training programs are the key to encourage energy efficiency projects. Jorge was mentioning building capacity is very important. So training must be led by development banks, of course, and both for commercial teams in the banks to know how to address and to analyze that specific project that are very kind of different and have different figure structures, and also to SMEs and to companies that are just preparing the credits just before they present the transaction to the bank. So first, training programs. 2, in this kind of program, we found that without alliances is not alliances are very, very important. So here, alliances between actors who promote supply and demand of new technologies and a strengthening of energy efficiency projects. And third, we also understood and we learned that technical service providers consider that the insurance is an added value. So we have to design and we have to go forward and deepen all the specific financial tools in order to help SMEs to be cleaner and to implement energy efficiency projects. those are the three lessons we learned.
Thank you very much, Maria Jose. And then the final question to Paola, based upon the challenges that you kind of mentioned during your presentation and everything that you had to adapt, if you had to kind of think of a new version of this program, what would be your main recommendation and suggestions?
Well, it's funny because when we are designing this kind of projects, we are thinking this is a project for the next 4 years. And one of the things that I learned is it's just the long term now is not 4 years. So when we talk about in tech companies, they said long term, 3 weeks. So it's very difficult to plan in 4 years. I think one of the things that I learned, and I think we need to, and this, the IDB was really helpful during the execution of the project, is that probably in the middle way we have to change and adapt and be creative. I think that is one of the lessons that I got out of this project. So one of the things that I would say, okay, if we have to plan it differently, I don't know if I can really tell you all the things that I would add. However, I know that this is not going to be the final version. That final version we have to walk it and see and start preparing for the, we can prepare for the whole scenarios, but we're probably something that we haven't think for, and especially in countries like in Latin America. I think that's one of the things that I got. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. So thank you very much to all three panelists. I mean, these are very compelling and very good examples for the people that may be looking at how to approach this. So I think all three experiences, what you've seen in CAF, what you've seen in Mancoldex, and what you've seen in BICE, are fantastic examples of very potent programs that face challenges, because this isn't easy. But definitely the strength of the institution definitely helps promote the change that must be needed, no? So just to summarize, I guess, 5 main ideas to take away from this panel. One is that these are projects, as mentioned before, that have very high development impact. And for all of us who are fortunate to be here in Egypt and be living the day-to-day of the COP, we realize that the climate change conundrum is a very urgent one, no? And that action is required as soon as possible. And therefore, whatever we can do in our own countries to help promote this and help make this spread to all sectors of the economy and to all social stratus that we may be accessing, or companies that we may be accessing, is very key. And then in that essence, we have to make sure that whatever program are being designed will have that impact in climate change. So definitely there is support for the growth, and there is the necessity to help make these companies viable and these projects successful, but definitely the impact is something that will be very necessary. Second item, and I think most of you mentioned it as well in your presentation, is that these are projects that need support in terms of the institutional capacity that you were mentioning, and that comes at the level of whatever CAF and IDB we have to learn as well on how to engage better on these types of programs, because it can never be perfect, and we always have to kind of set the bar as well. But then BICE and Mancoldex also have their institutional issues that they have to strengthen to have a good value proposition so that they can roll these programs. And that support also to the beneficiaries in the end is very clear and important, because these are projects that aren't easy to implement and will take time to adapt to new technologies as we see the technologies moving faster and faster. One aspect of this, which is an important aspect that I think Jorge touched upon, but just wanted to re-emphasize as well, is the importance of all our money collectively is probably not going to be enough. So we have to make sure that whatever we can do to crowd in the private sector to this important and noble mission of climate change is absolutely necessary. So the role that us four institutions have in the world is not only to provide funding, but sometimes also to provide the de-risking, the aspect of mitigating whatever inch of risk that the private sector may see, so that they may add on their money and help promote something that will be meaningful for what we're trying to do. The fourth aspect is, as we have seen and attested to, not only in these countries but in all of the region, the market potential is immense. There's a lot to do, and we don't have enough time to do it, but we have to make sure that we work together and coordinate very well so that we are as efficient as possible with everything that we need to do. So also taking home what Jorge was mentioning a while ago as well. And then the last bit, of course, and this with, I'll wrap up with this, is that what we have here in terms of these types of programs and thinking about the MSMEs is all the aspect of sustainable growth and helping support the countries in order to improve it. But we have to make sure that no one gets left out. So this sustainable growth has to be inclusive, and that, I think, is kind of the role as us as DFIs and MDBs. We need to make sure every day that we continue to hammer that objective and keep going with that priorities. So with that, I will wrap up. I wanted to thank again the panelists, of course, for their wonderful presentations and their resilience in answering all the questions that I had. And of course, the invitation from the IDFC and BICE for organizing this, which I think will be very useful in terms of other institutions wanting to get inspired and join in the effort. Thank you very much then. Have a nice evening and have a good day.